Welcome to Radio Evolve. Welcome, Dario Ferraro. Great that you're here.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Great. Dario, you are active in the European Ecovillage Network. You live in Vilnius and in a community in Italy. And the context for our conversation is the European Ecovillage Network gathering that will be held in Germany in July. We thought that would be a great opportunity to also speak with you a bit where you see eco-villages. I mean, it's a broad term of a lot of different projects in different countries in Europe, but maybe to get a sense where this network is going, and maybe to start with the question, you know, eco-villages have been around for quite some time in different ways now, and where do you see the eco-village movement now in the situation that we are in, also in the times that we are in that are challenging in many ways, where do you see the Eco-Village network at the
Yeah, hi, Mika. Thank you for this question. And I can start maybe saying that something that is implicit in your question. So, and many of us already know that if you heard the word eco-village, um, this is an intentional community of people coming together to try to regenerate their lives and their presence on the planet, not just from an ecological perspective, but on a perspective that takes into account regeneration also socially, economically, and culturally. So this has that have been pioneers that, in a way, that have come together for the last 30, 40, some even 60 years. The Ecovillage of Findhorn, that is one of the oldest that there is in Europe, celebrated last year, if I can remember well, its 62nd or 63rd birthday. So it's quite impressive. And at the same time, there are a lot of communities that are being created in these days. So when we're talking about where the eco-village movement is at, we're trying to freeze a moment that where in some ways there is a lot of new energy, a lot of growing happening, and at the same time there is already enough history to take a step and look back and have some reflections. And this brings us also close to the topic of trust, which is the issue of the magazine, the topic of this issue of the magazine, and it will also be the topic of our next gathering that, as you said, will happen from 13th to 18th of July in Germany, in a community in southern Germany that is called Nature Community. And I'm mentioning trust here because it's this moment where the like especially the older communities, the one that were created 40, 50, 60 years ago, what they were doing, for many of them, I was not there, so I'm not a first-hand witness, but from what I felt and I heard from those stories, um, is that for many of them was a move to take a step back, in a way, to take a step mm, aside from a word that they um, couldn't recognize themselves. It was the time of the nuclear proliferation. It was the time of when the first books of ecological awareness were written, Silent Spring, about the use of pesticides, massive use of pesticides in agriculture, um, a moment where, yeah, the war discourse, the Cold War was dominating headlines, and people that wanted to find a more harmonious way of life among themselves and with the planet takes the step aside, a step that creates a strong bond, a strong bond of trust among the people that take this step, but a step that is also somehow based on a distrust towards what is around. And what is happening now, what I think is happening now, is that a lot of new communities, a lot of new people are um, starting eco-villages, deciding to go and live together because they find hope in this, hope with a future that is not just for themselves, but because they see in this something that can and should become a model for society. So it's in a way, uh, it's a way to channel trust, not only in their immediacy, but towards a process of transformation for society and for the world. So we're in this moment of different um, energies that are coming together in a container that has existed for a long time, has revealed itself capable also of this transformation of holding diversity, of holding complexity, because every eco-village, there is not a blueprint for an eco-village. Every eco-village is very different from each other. So in this diversity, we're walking together and try to make sense of the world that surrounds us.
Mm-hmm. And how do you see that dynamic that, or maybe you see it differently, but that also the early eco villages, that there was this ecological awareness with the first, or recognizing the damaging of nature, and what that also implies for human beings, creating eco villages where there is a different relationship with nature, with the ecological world, with the living world, and also the hope that the eco villages, are a kind of, seed from which that can spread widely into society, and the hope for a kind of ecological social transformation in, yeah, maybe in some decades or like that. And today we are in a situation where many I mean, the whole ecological situation is worsening, and is more urgent. But it seems also so many other things are happening, so many other crises around conflict, war, artificial intelligence, that also these ecological topics get it back into the, into the background. And how do you see eco villages in these times, where there are also kind of backlashes in certain ways to these efforts to transform society? How how do you see that affecting eco-village, or how do you speak amongst your network about that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting and difficult question, because, as I said, we had a beautiful debate that just started at the gathering last year when we were in Hungary, uh, and without preparing it, but somehow the question landed in the space: um, is living in an eco village, is building an eco village from scratch. Like, this is some very important. Now is a question that came from a lot of founders, but I don't think it's only relevant for founders. It's really, the question is living an eco village a political act, or is just a personal choice? And it was very alive. We had different answers in the room. Um, so now, is the war in Gaza something that affects us, something that we concern us as Eco Village movement? And we're coming closer to the answers, and in this case, I will have to say the answer is yes, because it touches what moved us in the first moment, like a vision of what being a human being means. So if I believe in a specific kind of human being, and if I believe in a way of being humans in the planet, and based on that vision, I decide to live in an eco village. Then there are a lot of other things as well that touch this vision of what it means to be human. And a lot of horrible things that are happening in the world are touched by that. So it's an active effort that we're doing to not become too comfortable in the beautiful spaces that we created, and also recognize that they are crossed by contradictions and that they're exposed to privileges and power dynamics. So that we're very lucky to be able to make that choice, but we also need to recognize that luck and to be able to, you were saying hopes that that moved a lot of people uh, again 50, 60 years ago, and that now we see that's not the way the the world rolled out. We're in an even we're in even harder crisis. The stakes are even more higher. We're pointing at a possible drastic reduction of biodiversity and the possibility of life on the planet. Um, it's definitely very hard stakes, and it would be too ambitious, probably also too arrogant to just say, oh, that ecovillages have the answers to all of this. We don't. We need to learn, and we need to learn together with other people that are on the search for answers. But we think we can claim we are spaces of experimentation where people can come together and look for these answers.
Mhm. Yeah, and in that way, I mean, there's also another way to look at it, that eco-villages for the last in decades have provided also a kind of fertile ground for new experiments. I mean, in ecological farming, in living together, in decision making, in dialogue, in diverse how to deal with human diversity, and maybe also those effects are not always seen in that, that you can track them, one by one, but it's a that it also, uh, you know, comes into the broader society through, through different ways that that this experiment also, al come into society.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, we had a huge impact on a personal level of people that came close to these experiments, to these places, and at the same time, I think it would be fair to say that on a societal level, we've been rather niche, if you want, eco villages. And it's very interesting how there is a growing interest in what we're doing, and there is a growing interest on many levels uh, after COVID and pandemics, the like the how to say the measures to reduce social contact. Um, all eco villages received like hundreds of calls, hundreds of requests of people that uh, maybe without doing a lot of preparatory work sometimes, because living in community requires a lot of commitment and a lot of inner work. Uh, but a lot of people were uh, just suddenly became curious of what living in an eco village means, and maybe with that, or maybe even before, with the political awareness that, again, also thanks to young people, was brought to the climate crisis, especially a few years ago. Also, a lot of policymakers started to look with more curiosity at eco-village. I see that there is a growing interest for what we're doing. And this, again, it comes a bit to the topic of trust, and how we have the systems where we build this trust between each other, uh, and this trust. There is a beautiful article that another person from the Ecovillage movement in Asia Oceania published recently, called "Invisible Architecture," talks about the horizontal trust. Benjamin Bernabella talks about the horizontal trust that is built in community, um, and among community members through designed moments, designed rituals, conflict resolution protocols, a whole set of practices and tools that have been developed. And this works, and this is also we can see in a place like the gathering, where people come from this space of being used to using nonviolent communication, like of being creating this space of trust between people that share space and time. Um, but then there is another kind of trust, which Benjamin calls the vertical trust, which is the one that that can, or we hope should, go through society, through different sectors, through different people that maybe don't have the privilege to share the same space and the same time. Maybe they don't share meals every day, but they can trust that the government works for the common good and not for their private interest. They can trust that different collectives want to collaborate for the common good and not just pursue their private interests. Um, well, that vertical trust is something that is more difficult to build, and creating spaces like the gathering where um, different actors, different movements, different organizations can come together. And we as Ecovillages host this platform for encounter to happen and for this trust between diverse people can happen. That's um, that's an attempt to
Yeah.
transcend a bit what we can do in our immediacy. And I don't know if I answered your question or if I went my own way now. I'm sorry.
Oh, great. I mean, maybe let's also go into that a bit more with the topic of trust. And also, you said how much inner work it also takes to live in an eco village. And can you say a bit more that how you see that? What kind of inner inner work, inner processes can enable coming together in that horizontal trust? In what way are eco villages in this way kind of also experiment in this kind of trust between you?
Well, eco-villages are, again, just want to say this once more before answering your question, because there is really a huge diversity of practices. And there are places that are very strongly spiritually oriented, and that others that are very secular, that are just really based on. Um, but I think that everywhere there is this uh, orientation towards personal betterment or personal improvement, like of understanding life as a journey where we want somehow to, yeah, to get out from the other side as somehow having human being, and this is, I guess, the most fundamental clue, the most fundamental commitment that bases this inner work that I was mentioning, and the idea of seeing the community in more or less spiritual eco-villages. But I think everywhere there is this idea that the community is a mirror, is that there's living in close contact with the others is something that uh, brings conflicts, and conflicts are gifts because conflicts are opportunities for me to look at what triggers me and to ask myself why, and to try to take a breath and be more conscious. And that's the tool that I can use for this self improvement. So basically, living in community and getting all these mirrors, getting all this, being more exposed to these opportunities is what allows the internal work, the inner work to happen.
Mhm. And and I found that interesting that you call the gathering, the title is Dare to Trust. So I found it quite interesting, you know, it's a it's a kind of, you know, that trust is a courageous act. That's what I heard in that phrase. Can you say a bit more how you came to that, to that topic, to do the gathering on the topic of trust, and trust as a kind of, yeah, courageous act in these times? How you came to that?
Yeah. Well, I think it is related with this that I was mentioning before of us as a movement recognizing the role that we have, that we can have in the world also behind our doors, beyond, sorry, I want to say our doors, the world outside the eco villages. And, um, and then we started thinking about, and we realized that, of course, trust is this. Maybe many of us tend to think about trust as a feeling, no, like as a warm feeling that you can experience when you're surrounded with people you care, with people surrounded by people you love, um, and of course there is that, and this is something that we can experience so often or sometimes in eco villages. We can experience it at the gathering, but the idea of daring to trust is the idea that trust is not just a feeling, it's not just a comfortable state where you are, but is a choice. Is this idea that we cannot, we don't, or we cannot, we don't want to just stay in the comfortable feeling and live behind closed doors. We realize that for our comfortable closed door warm feeling to be possible, the words that surrounds it needs to be a word where humanity trust, respect, regeneration for the planet, for the other living beings are valued. And so we need to be active in the world. And to dare to trust is to dare to try to bring this trust out of the private sphere to the political, to the collective sphere as well. That's why, and there, why requires courage? It's because of this original wound, this original this original moving away, and now wanting to come back, and wanting to come back to a world that, in a way, is more curious about what Ecovillage do, but also, uh, why policymakers, why politicians uh, suddenly are so interested in eco-villages, or more interested in eco-villages than before, and while at the same times we're uh, reducing or the climate environmental policy, we're reducing opportunities and funding for civil society organization. So while hate speech is so it it is a difficult move to make, to move from the warmth of the trust of the trustful circle to the word. That's why it requires courage and daring. But at the same time, especially in these difficult times, we think it's a fundamental move to do.
Hmm. Yeah, and it is a courageous move also in that distinction you made of the horizontal trust between human beings and that vertical trust, in politics and kind of that governments or maybe also economic organizations work for the common good, and that trust is also quite broken at the moment, that there's a lot of mistrust, in institutions, in governments, and that also creates all kinds of social problems. And what I hear you saying is then to also bring a different, bring a different possibility of how to organize a society in your gathering, or how you laid it out. There are several levels where distrust is kind of pointed to, or where you speak about that, and one is also what I read: dare to trust that there are different economic models or different way to organize as a community, like in an eco village, but also as a society. That it's not, because there is often the sense, okay, this global capitalism is kind of the only alternative that is left somehow. In that way, there is also this kind of visionary sense or experiments in eco villages that say, no, there is also a different way. How you do you see trust in that regard?
Yeah. Well, as you said before, I like this image that you used of the eco village as a seed, no? And when we try to um, extend trust from the horizontal dimension to this vertical dimension, to this societal dimension, we want to build it again together, like this seed, show it, share it, and but not just stop at this interpersonal dimension. So we at the gathering we we're building, we're working on and preparing four main um, threads from four main topics that go also to this way of looking at society in different ways and try to build together with others, with other people, with other allied movements, like different ways to approach this topic. And one is to trust community and trust solidarity, of course. Um, Trust the richness that there is in diversity as well in different cultures, and how we can learn from each other, from our authenticity, from different indigenous cultures as well, that bring worldviews that are to the planet, true to the respect and the regeneration of the modern human world, of the other living beings. And this brings also the idea of daring to trust the earth, daring to trust the planet, nature, because I mean, in our um, Western culture, nature is basically a hostile environment that we have to defend ourselves from, and we really will bring in voices um, that help us to see the modern human world or nature, as you want to call it, as a generative place, as a generous and supporting place also for human life. Where humans are able to integrate and respect and limit also themselves in the approach it with an extractivist approach, but with a relational approach. And then, as you mentioned, we also touch the topic of creating different solidaristic economies. We have been working for a few years and collaborating on different levels with network of social and solidarity economy. There will be people um, coming at the gathering, bringing voices, talking about the gift economy, talking about uh, how to shift it from destruction to supporting life, and how to create economies of common good, of abundance, that not uh, that doesn't exist only behind gates. And then also there is the fourth um, the fourth thread that where we, the fourth lens that we will look at trust through is also imagination and future, is this idea of hope once more, this idea of being able to from this interpersonal connection that will be created to the that alternatives are there, to recognizing and realizing that there is actually a lot of possibilities and a lot of connections and people that are working towards it, and moving towards a different kind of future. So regain this hope and regain this possibility to trust in in utopian futures that are so different from the fear narratives that we're so immersed now, but that can and are real just as much as those.
Mhm. And how do you see that also maybe in the gathering, how you wanna facilitate, um, you know, growing that trust also that, you said it's really not only trust as a feeling, but trust as a decision in that way of daring to trust, and I mean, daring to trust also the earth and nature, the living world, daring to trust the future is also not something that is just, you can just say and then it happens, or it's not just a mental kind of idea. It needs, I mean, trust is also a really deep existential, position, you can say, or grounding. How do you think, maybe generally, but also at the gathering, this, we can move into that deeper choice to trust, um, or how can we support each other that this trust can grow really, from the inside out, and not just as a kind of nice idea.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, well, the gathering is a place where we bring together experiences from different communities, practices, and we open them to everybody who decides to spend these 4 days, 5 days with us, to be able to this set of practices. And something that is to start with is something we recognize the importance of rituals also, the importance of going through um, symbolic moments. So one moment that uh, is one of the beautiful moments of the gather is the opening on the first day, on the arrival day. That is always, it's always different. And it's always designed together with the local community, bringing to elements of creativity, of art, of to create together with everybody that is the moment of encounter, of dialogue, of landing, really, to allow the people that come there not to feel they're just a guest, they're just a guest visiting a fair or something like that, but to really create this sort of temporary community that will be with each one of us for the time that we will spend together. And this founding moment is what then allows us to be accompanied, to be together with. And in this first evening is also when we build the moments, what we call the sharing groups, that will then meet in the next days, and keep like sharing impressions, feelings, this kind of also of mirror something, because maybe we will go through the gathering and see something that touches us, that triggers us in different ways, in good ways or in not so good ways. And in the first night is when we create the safe container for this to be shared and to be processed in a group of people. So each participant has his small group, small circle of 5, 6, 7, 8 companions to travel through the experience, and have this ritual of coming together every day and processing the experience together. And then what will happen in the days, in the morning, that will be uh, speakers, and debates and workshops on these 4 different threads that I was talking about before, inspiring ideas, thought provoking, and the afternoon will be a bit different. The afternoon will be more. Uh, we want to also leave a lot of space for emergence and self-organization of of everybody that is there. Really, we use this technique that is called open space. Maybe somebody will know it, but that basically is an invitation for everybody that wants to share something, wants to open a space for a conversation to happen about something that is important for them, to offer this to the gathering, to everybody really, and um, and then have this somehow very organic, fluid space where people will be able to cross-pollinate different conversation and different moments. Some happening more formally, and some other more informally, because of course there will be also cafes and informal spaces for people just to meet and share. And then there will be evenings of music and dancing and theaters and comedy, and that really bring in also very lively, specific, if you want, culture that is developed in different eco-villages, and then come together and merges, and there is this like big creative jam on different levels happening, with circle songs, with contact improvisation, with yoga, acro yoga. There will be also more slow opening morning openings with like meditation, mindfulness, yoga. So different opportunities, different rhythms also to experience, because at the same time there will be this thread connecting different activities, supporting people to go through to it, not just as individuals, but finding others to go through this experience together, but also a lot of different moments that people will be able to choose and to design their own journey through it.
Mhm. And you mentioned the emergence, or that self-organization. That's something, uh, there's also out of that creative coming together something possible. What do you envision also as a network from this gathering to you know to emerge there, or how what kind of how it can serve a meeting like that, a gathering like that, where many people come together to serve the whole network, or kind of maybe also from that topic of trust, something you know emerging, how this can be lived in, you know, in eco villages, how that gathering serves the whole network as a kind of also creative pool of of maybe new, you know, new ideas, new practices, new insights.
Yeah. Well, just a couple of months ago, we were together in a meeting, people from different countries in Europe, some of them that have been founders of eco villages and lived in community for 30 years, and other young people that are starting their journey. And and we were in a storytelling session, and everybody was telling about the important milestones that brought them closer to the movement, that moved them to make some important decisions, change their lives uh, on different levels. And it was incredible. For in each one of the stories, the gathering was a crucial moment, like really a transformative moment when people really realized that they were not alone, that there was a lot of energy around wanting to connect with others and with the planet differently. And they had this big moment of recognizing each other, of feeling nourished, of finding energy to go back home and yeah, believe and trust in what in the meaning in the deep meaning of what they're doing or trying to do, because there are so many people that are on the same page and that are doing exactly the same in in different parts of Europe and different parts of the world, really. Because even if this is the ecovillage gathering, the ecovillage movement is global, and there are people coming to the gathering every year from South America, North America, Asia, Africa. So it is touching to come to back together every year, and is a huge boost in motivation and energy indeed. And then the second aspect is this is now what I'm talking more about how what it means for each one of us to go to the gathering and what we do experience. But then you were also asking what do we expect from the gathering as a movement, and more and more with no woven in this processes that we were describing before, about trust, about engagement, about the words around us. We really expect it to be a platform to meet with diversity, to meet with newcomers, to meet with people that are curious about the movement, but maybe have some resistances towards it. We don't want the gathering to be a moment, just a place just for insiders. While we know we design it in a way that allows to have this family feeling, in a way, this warm feeling. We also design it in a way to be very open and to welcome a diversity of people, and to be an invitation from the Eco Village movement for everybody that wants to come and have a conversation with us and maybe also challenge us on something. Um, because this is how we think we can grow together, how we can really build this vertical trust if we have honest conversation.
Hmm. Hmm. And maybe also, um, you related to that, you say, dare to trust the future. You said is one of the is one of the streams you are investigating. Dare to trust that there are maybe different ways to organize how we live on this planet, and maybe related to that also with eco villages as also in a certain way, practical utopias, you could say, or you know, uh, how do you see um, the role of eco villages maybe moving now, towards the future, also in the next years or beyond that, to strengthen that in the future, because there's also a lot of mistrust to the future, that there's collapse awaiting, or breakdown in many different ways. There's fear related to that. How do you see eco villages playing a role in providing uh, a sense that there is a different way possible, and yeah, maybe giving that courage to trust the future, and that there is a there is a future possible, and maybe a better future possible. How do you sense that?
Well, there are many images that come to my mind because, of course, trusting in the future, it it's it's a courage move. It's no, again, it's daring to trust in the future, really. And when I feel that when you have a too specific image of the future, it always risks to be a bit delusional. No, so I prefer to have a more disconnected images than to have one very organic discourse to give you as an answer here. And one image that came to me is something beautiful, I think, that was made by German ecovillages. I think it's still active, but it was for sure in the last years. And it was called Zähneputzen. It was called brushing your teeth. And it was a specific offer for climate activists to come and take a retreat of a few days, come and rest, come and get regenerated, um, uh, feel like it right now after struggling so hard, after focusing so much on the ugly side, on the difficult side of the world. Come and have a shower, come and have a good, healthy, nourishing meal, and feel the support. And I think this is an important role that ecovillages can play uh, of bringing back the attention to the need for regeneration also, and balance and inner growth also, in face of the most challenging, threatening uh, shadows that the future can. And then the other image that I have is the one of the pollination, of the sharing, of the flowers that is opening and invites pollinators to take and bring its its uh, its ideas somewhere else, take them, transform them, uh, apply them in different contexts and places, because uh, there is a controversial statement that I I like to do when I'm with my friends in the movement, which is that it's difficult to imagine a world of ecovillages if we want to at the same time preserve biodiversity. We need to find, transform, adapt, share what we've learned in decades of experimentation with different collectives, different movements, different uh, social configurations. And and at the same time keep our essence, keep our role of places of trust and of places where uh, people can come together and try to invest their time and their energy in what they really believe.
Hmm. And with that, I mean, you also mentioned that with, when you spoke about young activists coming to eco-villages to regenerate from, the activist actions. And how do you see eco-villages also in this kind of movement between the generations? Because, as we said in the beginning, many eco-villages exist for quite some time, and the generation of the founders is older now, and there's a kind of new generation coming in. And you said there is a lot of interest also in eco-villages, or also starting new uh, communities or eco-villages. How do you see the relationship between the generations in that context, or maybe also how eco-villages can also be an example how to do that transition in a different way, or the dialogue between the generations, or how you know there's also a way that more experienced people who lived longer can share with younger people that come into that eco-village idea now, can share their experience, can share their wisdom, so to say. And also the young people coming in now with their fresh energy and maybe new ideas also bring new energy into that movement. Do you see that dynamic and how do you work with that, or do you work with that?
That's a beautiful question because we don't have a recipe, or at least not yet. And it's something that is very alive in a lot of communities. And I've been in a lot of conversation about this and hearing a lot of conversation about this. And I heard different answers. It is very alive for a generational reasons because now the generation of the founders is now being uh, well, coming to a point where this question come is very alive, and um, of course there is there are a lot of issues that come together. That is the process of aging, the relationship between the family bonds and the community bonds, the relationship between generations, not only in the community but on societal level, that of course project their shadow on what is happening. I know that in a lot of communities this is a very alive process, and there are often uh, meetings, workshops, healing sessions. We're putting all of our tools to work on this, and this is one of the very alive point in the movement now. So it's difficult for me to tell you, yes, this is what we do and this is what we do, because this is what we're learning right now. This is what we're
Mhm.
learning how to do right now. What I can say is that everything what we learned about mirrors and conflicts and the community being your own trigger for personal growth, um, it doesn't end when you retire. This is a lifelong commitment, and the same for the young people. We're doing a lot of intergenerational spaces. The last gathering last year in Hungary, uh, the the um, the topic was exactly about nourishing the roots and like learning from the past. It was Jen's like the Ecovillage Network's 30th anniversary last year. So we took this moment to really look into this intergenerational topic. But the conversation is not over yet, I would say. Yeah, what we do is to try to apply everything what we know about being conscious of privileges and being open, being in conversation to this as well. And what I like to think is also that it's funny. I always think about The Simpsons. You know, The Simpsons, the cartoon, and how Springfield was an intentional community. How many villages were born as intentional communities, and many of the villages that, well, in Europe, no, we're an old continent. Most of our villages are centuries old, and some of them were born as military camps. Some of them were born a different way, but some of them were born as intentional communities, and they survived. So for sure there are ways, and yeah, and we want to find a way that works for us that keeps in the values, the humanity, and yeah, and everything what we believe in.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dario. Is there something you wanna add? With something you feel you want to still bring in?
Well, I just want to say thank you. I yeah, it was nice to have a conversation. It really helped me to look into some of the aspects of the movement of the gathering, or reflect a little bit more deeply on this issue of trust. And yeah, just maybe to repeat that for us, it's important in this experiment to go out from this closed circle of the trust of the one community to open, and that where this really happens is at the gathering. So maybe just one more to say that this works only if the people that are listening to us take this invitation and come to see what can touch them in a space like the Eco Village gathering in this temporary community that will be created for 5 days in July. And maybe if you allow me also to say that, maybe to tell the website ecovillagegathering.org. So if anybody felt
Mhm.
curious about this that we were saying, and about the gathering itself on the ecovillagegathering.org, they can find the dates, the program, the ticketing, the tickets, and the videos from the previous gathering. So yeah, if anybody feels curious to know a bit more about it, they can find them there.
Yeah, thank you. We will also post a link underneath the video. Thank you, Dario, for that conversation, and everyone for listening, for watching, and please leave your comments also. That way we can continue the dialogue. And thank you very much, Dario, and all the best for your network and your gathering.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.